we're bringing knowledge each and every week. And I wrote about Jaylen Wright and the fact that we talked about Dylan Sampson because I think he's probably a little sexier of a running back, faster, has a better twitch, has a better wiggle and all that. But when we look back at this, has Tennessee misevaluated, and there's a comparison to Walter Payton I want to get to. I like Jaylen Wright a lot, but was there a misevaluation going into last year? Because as you remember, I'm sure, the talk was Jabari Small going into 2022 about how he put on 15 pounds and he was the starter and he was the guy. And what happened? He got beat up as usual. And at the end of the day, Jaylen Wright had more yards per carry and didn't have as many carries as Jabari Small, but was certainly more successful throughout the course of last season. And that's proving to be the case again, as he looks like he is Tennessee's 1A back. So we've talked before about misevaluating talent, which is a skill, and you're not going to be 100% right all the time. But the talk heading into this camp, Caleb, was Jaylen Wright was willing to run over people, and he wasn't always bouncing the ball outside. Really? Or was Jaylen Wright the better running back from the get, going back about 15 months ago?
I'm not going to say he was the better running back from the get. And the reason I'm not going to say he was the better running back from the get is because we have to remember that Jaylen Wright put on 15 pounds this all season.
True.
And conditioning has a huge role to play in this. I think the question for a lot of people was, if he put on the weight, would he still be the same type of player? Look, first of all, this is another major credit to Jeremy Pruitt. Jeremy Pruitt's the one who found Jaylen Wright, a 3-star out of North Carolina who was an all-purpose back. He signed him. We all thought he was going to be the all-purpose back to complement Jabari Small. I then thought he'd be the odd one out because Dylan Sampson was the guy I thought was the all-purpose back. What I didn't see coming was Jaylen Wright putting on the 15 pounds and maintaining his speed and agility when he put it on. So he's basically got Jabari Small's power running now, plus he's got agility that I got a lot of regard for Small, but he just doesn't have that same agility that Jaylen Wright has, or speed for that matter. And you couldn't know that until you saw him in camp after conditioning.
No, I'll give you that. The thing that I love about Jaylen Wright is that he does run hard. Wright also got less carries last season because of fumbles and to some extent pass blocking, although I think, Gary, that's a great call out. I think that was more Dylan Sampson got less carries last year because he wasn't as good in pass pro. So either Jaylen Wright has elevated his play or he was overlooked. Regardless of that, where does he rank among the best tailbacks now in the SEC? It's really tough to determine, Caleb, because so many people use a committee of tailbacks, and if there's an elite one, point him out to me. But I don't think there are elite tailbacks anymore. That's the way college football is played. But Jaylen Wright on his own, if they were having a draft pick for, let's say, an East-West all-star game, which, man, wouldn't that be pretty cool, by the way? But if they were doing that, where would Jaylen Wright go?
Ooh, that is a tough question. And I'm not sure. If Blake Corum's in the East, isn't he going to go over Jaylen Wright? I mean, you would have to think, right? And
I meant specifically the SEC. I'm sorry.
Oh, specifically the SEC. Okay. I would probably say, well, you got Ramon Davis at Kentucky, Ray Davis, who's just absolutely torched people on the ground this year. I mean, look at what he did to Florida. I mean, you have a comparison, Jaylen Wright versus Ray Davis, and look how they ran against Florida. Ray Davis ran a lot better. And again, Ray Davis doesn't have a Cooper Mays that he's running behind either. Now, Jaylen Wright didn't have that against Florida, to be fair. But, yeah, it's Ray Davis. You got to go Ray Davis.
Yeah, Ray Davis averaging over 7 yards per carry. There are 3 tailbacks that are averaging over 7 yards per carry. Ray Davis at Kentucky, but then Jaylen Wright is 7.14 over Ray Davis's 7.04. Ulysses Bennett, the fourth, is a 7.43. But in all fairness, he's your kind of scat back guy. He's a go-to back on occasion. He's ripped off some long runs, which has thrown that number off a little bit. But you want to go Ray Davis, and I get that. But I could make a strong argument that Jaylen Wright is of that ilk, and that Dylan Sampson, who's averaging 6 yards a carry, is just a little short of that. It's interesting to me that Jaden Daniels, LSU's quarterback, ranks almost at 6 yards per carry at 5.99. But the rest of these guys, when you're talking about the best tailbacks in the biz in the SEC, it's Ulysses Bennett, the fourth, Esquire, junior, senior. Jaylen Wright, right behind him, Ray Davis of Kentucky, AJ Green of Arkansas, and then Dylan Sampson at number 5. So of the top 5 tailbacks, yards per carry, Tennessee has Deuce. They got 2 in there. That's a testament to Tennessee's offensive line, which has played a good bit of the season without Cooper Mays. So I think that's even more impressive.
No, it is. You're right. It's much more impressive. Dylan Sampson, though, is really just one game. I mean, we have to be honest. It's just the Texas San Antonio game. Outside of that, he's been pedestrian to a certain degree this year so far. I'm not blaming him. I just don't think the offense has done that great of a job getting him involved. I think Jaylen Wright is much more the prototypical running back in a lot of ways.
No, agreed. Now, there was a slight comparison made to Walter Payton, and I don't know if that's a slip of the tongue. The thing that I thought was cool about the Walter Payton thing is that he studies those old tailbacks like Walter Payton, and that's something that Jaylen Wright does. I didn't know about that. And yesterday, Willie Mack actually made a bit of a comparison, or Jerry Mack, excuse me, made a bit of a comparison to Walter Payton. Jaylen Wright's not Walter Payton. I don't know that we'll ever have another Walter Payton.
Well, you probably remember some highlights of him. I don't remember anything of Walter Payton, to be honest, other than he was a teammate of Willie Gault, funny enough, who was the leading receiver in that Super Bowl that they won, 85. But Jaylen Wright, for his size, you would think is more about agility and shiftiness, but he likes to truck people. As far as I remember, from my understanding, was Walter Payton didn't like to truck you, did he? Wasn't he more of a shifty running back than anything?
Yes, I watched a lot of Walter Payton. That's kind of down my wheelhouse of being 18 years old and younger and watching him. I don't see the comparison at all, to be real honest with you. I mean,
I don't think it was worth.
Yeah, they're two totally different tailbacks to me, but.
Yeah, what Jerry Mack brought up that made more sense to me was when he said Walter Payton Jaylen Wright has studied some Terrell Davis. I could see running like Terrell Davis with Jaylen Wright. I could see that a lot more similar because Terrell Davis, I wouldn't necessarily say he trucked people, but he was very vertical, like immediately. He had amazing vision, which I think Jaylen Wright's biggest strength is vision, and he immediately hit the hole and gashed it. So I kind of see more like of a Terrell Davis. I don't see a Walter Payton or a Barry Sanders. I see a Terrell Davis and to a lesser degree Emmitt Smith, although Emmitt Smith didn't truck or shift anybody. He just had the best offensive line in history. Sorry, Dave.
Well, he had that, but his greatest ability was getting every single inch out of every single yard. He was a fall forward type of back, and that's overlooked when Barry Sanders is juking people. But he got every inch out of every single run. I thought that was Emmitt's ability. Rocky Top Toms says sometimes it feels like Jaylen Wright runs into defenders purposefully. I like that. I like that too. I don't know if you even remember this. You brought up the comparison with Travis Henry. I think he's that type of back. I mean, I think he runs hard. He runs angry. And I mean, that is a huge compliment. I'm not saying he's as good as Henry, but he's the type of tailback that makes you not want to tackle him later in the game.
Yeah, he is Travis Henry without the size. No, Travis Henry was the same size, but like 2 inches shorter. So, but yeah, Travis Henry, the thing that always hit me was that, and this is the next step for Wright. Dave, there was never a 3rd and 1 where Travis Henry wasn't a guarantee to get the yard. I don't think I ever saw Travis Henry lose a yard on a handoff the entire time he was playing at Tennessee. The only time I saw him lose a yard was the 2000 Florida game where Randy Sanders, for the second year in a row, thought it'd be a good idea to call a toss play on 3rd and 1 when a first down up the middle gets the win. Very, very, very dumb decision by Randy Sanders, because Travis Henry up the middle was guaranteed to get a yard. I can't say that for Jaylen Wright yet. I mean, last weekend against Texas A&M, there was an obvious 3rd-and-1 play. They hand it off, and he gets tackled behind the line of scrimmage. So that's the only thing I'll say is, you talk about Emmitt Smith maybe falling forward, and you said what you said about Travis Henry. And you're right. I see him running hard like Travis Henry. I don't see him physically able to guarantee you a yard every time he touches the ball at a minimum.
No. Well said. Brian says, I think Coach Mack just said he was watching backs like Sweetness and TD or Tony Dorsett. Not sure Coach meant he runs like them. I don't think he did. I think he
said the leg kick is similar, though. That's what threw me off with Wright and Payton.
Right. I think it's just impressive he's going back and watching those old tailbacks. I mean, to me, that shows a sign of respect to history. And there's a lot you could learn. Listen, if you're playing tailback, who could you better learn from than Walter Payton and Tony Dorsett, which turned into Dorsett later in his career for some reason.
Oh my gosh, it was Dorsett. I thought it was Terrell Davis.
Oh no, he was talking about Tony Dorsett. I don't see Terrell Davis out of him, but Tony Dorsett was a beautiful runner with a Tennessee tie because he was coached by
Johnny Majors. Yep.
Absolutely.
Part of that recruiting class where Johnny Majors signed about 100 people, and then the NCAA stepped in and said, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah, but the rule was okay there, so go ahead and go there. And Moondrop Beauty, who makes the channel better looking every day when she posts. I think Jabari may be better on 3rd-and-1, to be honest. If you're running between the tackles, yeah, I got no problem with that. I think Jabari Small doesn't have necessarily the wiggle that Jaylen Wright has, but Small, despite his name, might be a better power back between the tackles. But hey, listen, let's all get excited about Jaylen Wright, because in this day and age, you don't see one tailback take over games, and he's probably not going to do that. But man, he's playing at a really high level.